Good afternoon, everybody. Rick Moore here, and a lot of times we're laying down this content to help you through the process of having success as a Bidpoint advisor. I've got Jim Sharon here, the CEO of Avion Energy, and this is the second day of fall of the year 2022. And so some would call it in the energy business the shoulder season. And I'll let Jim Sharon kind of get into what that is. There's a couple of shoulder seasons a year because people have two shoulders, I guess, is why I decided that. But maybe he's got a better answer than I do. As we get further into this conversation, I had the thought that you know most people, when you're building a book of business in anything, it's going on that 90-day run to get your business sparked, launched, whatever you want to call it, take it to another level. That 90-day run seems to resonate with most people, and it happens to uh, correlate pretty well to the calendar of energy pricing, both in natural gas and electricity, which are also tied together. So I want to get out of the way of Jim Sharon now. I want to preface this too by saying the one of the purposes of this call is a lot of you have been through launch calls with me, and typically we talk about getting a list of 20 great clients, and out of those 20 great clients, turning it into a great book of business. And so we want to talk about the process of that because while you're out there working hard to gather clients, a lot of times in that process, most of the time, in fact, you're going to pull other people into that conversation. I'm the point of contact for Bidpoint when it comes to talking about commercial energy brokerage and potential clients for that. My background has been in the energy business since about 2007, and I've gone through the process of learning it myself as a salesperson, through an organization just like what you're working to build here with Bidpoint. But I've also been on the corporate side as high as the senior vice president level with a Fortune 500 size energy company. But when I'm in a conversation with somebody about energy, I'm typically going to pull someone else from Avion Energy into the conversation, and a lot of time that's going to be Jim Sharon here, the CEO. So the lesson in that is never do this by yourself. Always demonstrate that you've got a team behind you to help to kind of give credibility and edification to the platform itself by adding someone else into the conversation. So Jim, thanks for being here today. And you and I have had lots of discussions about this in different seasons, but this particular season, may break new ground for a lot of people that are new to
Mm.
us or new to the energy business. What say you?
Yes, it's heading into a very different winter season right now. Um, and before I kind of go down that path, I do want to just kind of jump back and talk about the shoulder season because I think that'll uh, put everything in perspective of talking about what's happening right now and why this is a great time to have conversations about electricity and natural gas. But the one thing that's always has a certainty, Rick, is that we can look what's happened in the past, and we can see the price movement of natural gas or electricity, and it's there's no dispute about what actually happened. Everything is recorded, and there's records of all the prices and everything. And so we can look at historically what's happened and then project into the future what we think might happen. And many times history repeats itself, but not always. So that's the little caveat that we want to put out there is that looking into the future, nobody knows for certain, but there are things lining up right now that really weigh things very strongly in the direction that prices are escalating and are going to continue to go up, not only through the end of this year, but into the first quarter of next year. Now, the shoulder season is the historically there are two seasons that energy prices peak. One is in the summer, and that's always driven by electricity demand goes up. There's the supply and demand side of pricing. So when there's a demand for electricity, when it's hot outside, everybody's got their air conditioning on and using a lot more electricity, then prices go up typically, historically. In the wintertime, when it's cold, everybody has the furnace on, trying to heat their homes, heat their businesses. And that's a big driver during that winter season is the heat load. And, so prices, demand for natural gas goes up, prices typically go up for natural gas. Then you got those two other seasons. You got spring and you have the fall. In the spring, natural gas can pull back some, but not necessarily to the degree it does in the fall. And the reason for that is many times through the wintertime, they're pulling natural gas out of storage. They're actually able to store natural gas. They can't store electricity unless they put it in a battery. And so far, we don't have big, huge battery devices or, battery packs that are going to store enough electricity to make any difference in what we consume through the grid in all of our business and homes. So electricity, it's generated as it's needed. Natural gas is stored. And so we get through a cold winter and storage has been depleted. And then there's a big push to start replenishing storage. And that happens in the spring. So prices typically don't pull back as far because demand is still high to replenish storage. In the fall, however, things have calmed down. A lot of the electricity that's consumed is generated by natural gas. So natural gas demand stays high through the summertime as well. The fall typically is the historic season where demand is lowest. And that's the reason why we always try to get our clients contract end dates happening in the fall. Last thing you want is a natural gas contract ending in January, because every time it comes time to renew or redo that contract, you're doing it at a time when the prices typically are going to be highest. So we always want to get those contracts ending in the fall to benefit the customer. So as we, looking at this right now, it's September. So we're just starting fall. So we're in that season when prices are historically lower, but this is an abnormal season this year because things have affected demand for natural gas over across the world. Everybody's familiar with what's happening, Russia and Ukraine, and Russia, because of issues concerning that whole situation, is cutting off the natural gas supply to Europe. So Europe is experiencing some very difficult times when it comes to the supply of natural gas. They're trying to buy as much as they can from us through, liquefied natural gas. I don't want to give you a 2-hour long seminar about all this, but right now, glad you're living, working, doing business in the US and not in Europe. A lot of constraints over there, much worse economy than we're experiencing here. We are producing natural gas through the limited number of liquefied natural gas plants that are operational here in the US. They continue to build more because we have a strong supply of natural gas. But, pipelines were shut down back at the beginning of this year. Several things transpired. Natural gas demand in Europe's gone up. There was a liquid natural gas plant in Texas that had an explosion back in June. And surprisingly, that actually helped lower our prices a little bit going into the summer, because we weren't able to ship off a bunch of liquid natural gas to Europe. So that left more supply here. That plant is coming back online in October. So it's just a few weeks away before that plant will be producing again and then shipping natural gas to Europe on big, huge tankers. And they'll go ahead and take a big chunk of supply away from the US, send it over to Europe. So it's going to cause our prices to go up. And then there's, of course, there's always the debate among the meteorologists. And these are not the meteorologists on your local TV station. These are the meteorologists that work for the big energy suppliers. And every week, I attend multiple webinars, hour-long webinars with the big energy suppliers, and they're all giving their take on world events and pricing and where things are going, and how to service your customers and all that. So we have all that feedback, but the meteorologists don't always agree, as you might guess, and they're accurate about the same frequency as the guys in your local TV station. So I always kind of chuckle when it comes to that part of the webinar where they're giving their predictions, but we're in a La Nina cycle again for a third year in a row, which should mean a colder than normal winter. As a matter of fact, one of these meteorologists is predicting another cold spell like they had in Texas, last year. So others are saying that, well, the currents in the Pacific right now are starting to shift, and perhaps they might change, and so we might actually shift out of this La Nina pattern somewhere late fall, early winter, so it might not be as cold as possible. So just know that there's always some contrarian opinions within the industry. And as I said in my opening remarks, going forward into the future, nobody knows for sure. But when you're trying to do the best for your customer, you have to take a general consensus of what's happening in the markets right now. And prices have been going up, very volatile. We're right now this week in just a little bit of a pullback for natural gas, which has been good. A lot of customers have been locking in. But if you look at the prices, there are contracts that are sold for every month going into the future, 5, even out 10 years. Most energy suppliers might go out 5 years. That's about all that they'll sell. But right now, between now and through the end of winter, all the commodities markets are exhibiting high prices, higher than normal. Prices have about 2.5 times what they were a year ago. So almost triple the price of what it was a year ago. So when you got somebody, like we have many clients that have been in a 3-year contract, or contracts are ending, it's fall, like I just told you, we try to get them ending in the fall. And they've been paying these really low prices that we had 3 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, they're coming into this market where prices are almost 3 times what they were a year ago. And so the first thing is they're shocked at what the prices are. And their initial reaction is they want to kind of wait and see what's happening, because they can't imagine that prices, are going to stay up like that. And then in some cases, they're seeing the price at the gas stations, they're coming down just a little bit. And oil and natural gas have some correlation sometimes in pricing, but it's the demand for oil and for gasoline is very different than natural gas for its heating and manufacturing purposes. So you just have to kind of look at what's happening right now. We're showing people that with this natural gas plant coming back on board in a couple of weeks, and a bunch of our natural gas supply heading over to Europe for this winter, demand is going to be high. Prices are going up. Right now is actually a really great time to try to lock in some prices where we have this little bit of a pullback. When you talk about this to customers, it's really, the conversation is always about the risk. Do they want to take on the risk of going through the winter months when prices are the highest and there's all this volatility, and pay whatever the market rate might be? Or do they want to lock in a fixed price based on what today's market is before we ever get to winter, and know for a fact that while, yes, it's higher, but is it likely to go even higher yet, or is it likely to come lower? Well, the consensus is it's going to go higher. So when you can lock in, you just shift that risk away from yourself over to the energy supplier, and then you're not going to be exposed to some huge price spikes that could occur. So, Rick, does that from your past experience, I know that it's been years that we saw prices at this level way back. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think what year that might have been, 2008, and in there when natural gas was $1.36 a therm. We're not quite at that point yet, but I think on a residential level, they're starting, all the energy suppliers starting to market, and we'll see billboards showing up next month, and we're getting things in the mail. It's time to lock in your natural gas price for the winter. And I think you told me you got one in the mail yesterday or the day before that was $1.19 a therm.
That's
So
exactly right. That's exactly right.
it's getting up there. So it's my opinion, better to lock in now and get through this winter, and we'll see what's what. What do you want to add to the conversation, Rick? Anything at this stage?
Yeah, the one thing I want to talk about, Jim, is that because of, let's just say, the last half a dozen years, and maybe it's longer than that, that energy pricing has really been really good, right? Historically. And so it really wasn't something you had to pay a ton of attention to be just okay.
Yeah.
That a lot of the markets around America, you don't have to leave the utility and go with a retail supplier. There's only a couple places where you do, right? Georgia for gas and Texas for electricity. And
Yeah.
otherwise, any other market there is, you can just ride with the utility, and maybe
Yeah.
that'll be fine. I think something I would tell somebody, and want to see what your thoughts are, is that you need to go find out if the people you're talking to are actually in any kind of a contract, because they may not realize all the risk is on them. So,
Yeah.
what does that conversation look like internally at Avion?
Yeah, and again, these customers that are surprised, they're wanting to. Uh, Sometimes they'll have things depending on what utility they're in. They'll have a price to compare that's published on their billing statement, and so when we quote them new prices and it's this really high price, they're looking at that price to compare, and it looks like, well, that's lower. Maybe I should go back to the utility company. The problem is that the utility company's price is it's not a market price. It's a regulated price, and there's a big difference. The utility company doesn't make a profit. They're not able to make a profit. This is not a decision they made. It was part of the legislative process of the state and the Public Service Commission. They make their profits on the delivery of natural gas or electricity over their infrastructure, over the power lines, pipelines, meters, all that sort of stuff, getting to the end consumer. So that's where they make their profit. On the supply itself, if they don't make a profit, they really just don't pay much attention to it. They're buying it at market rates. And then the Public Service Commission is the one that sets the price. And so many times the price the Public Service Commission sets and the price that it actually costs are never equal. They just aren't. It's either more or less. So when the utility company charges more than what they should have, remember, they can't make a profit. So the Public Service Commission sets the rate, and it actually costs the utility company less money for the supply. Well, the next meeting that they have, they say, oops, you overcharged the consumers, but you can't make a profit. So we need to get this money back into consumers' hands, but they never send a rebate check in the mail. So they take a stab at it once more and figure out, okay, what the rate's going to be. And then we have this extra amount that needs to be repaid to the consumer. So we lower the rate by that much. So over this next cycle, some of them are every month, some of them are 90 days, some of them are 6 months where they're resetting the rates. So they're always, this regulated rate is always kind of a whiplash effect based on whatever the market conditions were. And many times it doesn't make much sense, but it's whatever the Public Service Commission says the rate should be is what the rate has to be. So if it's looking like it's a arbitrarily low rate right now, and you're going to opt to go with the utility company, well, you're taking on all the risk. The utility company has absolutely no risk whatsoever. The Public Service Commission is going to come back around and going to raise that rate if they didn't charge enough. So that next cycle, you're paying an even higher rate. So the only way to um, look at shifting that risk is to work with a third party supplier who has all the incentive in the world to be able to buy that energy better, where the utility company does not have that incentive at all. The third party energy supplier does. They're wanting to buy the gas at the absolute best price they can. So they're watching the commodities markets. They're watching when the price dips, and they're buying contracts. They're doing any number of things allowed to them in the commodities markets, hedging and some different things. I'm trying to keep this really simple. So in a simple way, they're going out and they're buying or locking in those future contracts so that they can offer it at a lower price. And if you get a fixed rate contract, then you know what you're paying. You have budget certainty. You're not going to be shocked in the middle of winter with some astronomical natural gas or electric bills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that, to kind of sum this all up, I think we're on the same page with this, is that this is really an excellent time to be talking to people right now. And so what we try to do at Bidpoint is, you know, keep our advisor network informed as to what's going on in the market. Our intention is to do this on a quarterly basis, but it's especially important now. So take advantage of this information here and take action on it would be the best advice that I would give. And let's have a great fall season with Bidpoint and also with Avion Energy. So I thank you, Jim, for your
Yeah.
time, and excited about the next couple of weeks and months. We can kind of get back around talking to people we've talked to in the past, because you have new information here to share with people,
Yeah.
and do a little deeper dive. Sometimes we in the electricity and natural gas markets, a lot of times the focus is on electricity and their electricity bills, but realize that sometimes the easiest bill to go in and take action on is their gas bill, which they're just leaving to ride with the utility. So you're doing your client a great service by getting their attention with this now, before they get that eye-popping bill and then call you, or call somebody else because you didn't call them.
Yeah.
So
Rick, I might add one more thing to what we've said so far. You mentioned the last few years, prices have been fairly stable, kind of moving in a sideways pattern, and they've been low. And so it was easy for people not to pay attention. I've shared in my comments today that, some people are getting some price quotes from us, and they're shocked and all that sort of stuff. I don't want to scare anybody off there. I want you to understand this is really a great time to talk to people, because it's not the sideways pattern of low prices. It's the high prices. All of a sudden they have to pay attention. So they want to know. So just know that everybody's having conversations. All these big businesses that you need to talk to, they're wanting information because they don't know and understand what's happening in a market right now. And the best thing you can do, and the reason that having a relationship with Avion Energy is so important, is because with prices being high and you need to really be a good shopper now, that's what we do. We do a better extensive job of energy procurement than the company would ever do on their own. They just would never go get a dozen prices or 20 prices or whatever the number might be that are competing in their utility footprint. And so if we can identify who has the best price today, and the customer doesn't have to spend, hours and hours and weeks in trying to find that, discover it themselves, all this man hours and everything, trying to find out where that best price is. We can do that through our technology and our systems. It's a huge benefit. So why would they ever want to pay more than they absolutely have to? So that's what we bring to the table, and they love us for it.
Right. And to your point, maybe an energy has all these dozens and dozens of supplier relationships. The reason you need the technology to search out the best price is because you've got to search out who's buying it the best, because that's who's going to have the best price. It's not a matter of
Yes.
people sharpening pencils, right?
Absolutely. And it all has to
Right.
happen within a 24-hour period, basically.
Right.
When it comes down to, locking in a rate, it's not like you can get a price from one guy and then next week get a price from somebody else. It's not an apple to apples comparison. We're showing apple to apples, who's got the best price right at this given moment in time.
I like them apples.
That's good.
All right. Well, everybody, listen, we want to thank you for your time and attention today. Whenever it is you see this message, which should be pretty soon, I want to thank you again, Jim Sharon, for being on top of the message and giving us the right information to share with our advisors and in turn our clients.
Always enjoy the conversations with you, Rep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.